Most people think horror is a jump scare or a monster in the dark. But real horror is that cold knot in your stomach that tells you to run, and the quiet, logical voice in your head that tells you you're being paranoid. I chose to listen to the logic. That was my first mistake. Looking back, I should have realized that your gut never lies. It just tries to warn you before the screaming starts. I was about 5 or 6 years old. This was around 2018 or 2019. My cousin, let's call him Maverick, and I were playing hide and seek in a brick field near where we lived. Huge stacks of bricks, workers everywhere, dust in the air. I was the seeker. I counted, and Maverick ran off to hide. When I finished, I found him pretty quickly behind a brick wall. He said he was thirsty and told me to wait while he went to get water, so I waited. I didn't realize how much time passed. Back then, I was a dumb, calm kid. Even when something felt wrong, I never took it seriously. After what was probably 2 hours, I got annoyed and decided to look for him myself. I asked the workers if they'd seen him. They all said no. Slowly, the place started emptying out. The sun was going down. One by one, the workers left. Suddenly, the brick field felt huge and quiet. Then I heard growling. At first, it was far away, like wolves, somewhere in the distance. Then it sounded closer. My stomach felt tight, but I still didn't cry or run. I just stood there, not fully understanding how bad the situation was. That's when two men showed up. They looked completely normal, calm, friendly. They said they'd help me get out. I don't even remember questioning them. I just trusted them. There was a bicycle nearby. I sat on the seat while they walked beside it, guiding me toward the exit. While moving, something made me look down. Their feet weren't touching the ground. No toes, no soles, just legs, floating slightly above the dirt. I panicked inside, but I forced myself to stay calm. I told myself I was just tired, that I hadn't had water, that my brain was making things up. When we reached the exit, I saw my mom running toward me. She looked scared. She hugged me immediately and asked if I was okay, where I'd been, and who helped me come out. I turned around to show her the two men. They were gone, just gone. Later, I found out Maverick had gone home and told everyone nothing. Instead of getting in trouble, he was praised and kissed by his grandmother, while no one really understood that I had been missing for hours. I still don't know what those two were, but I remember one thing clearly. They helped me leave, and their feet never touched the ground. This happened years ago, back when my family lived in a small house right beside a busy road. Across that road, there were stores everything, from a Walmart to a bunch of food places. But our side, it was all woods, thick, quiet, and shaded. My grandparents lived just on the other side of those woods. The walk through the trees only took a minute or two, and I'd made the trip more times than I could count. Sometimes I'd come across a raccoon or a deer, but that was normal, nothing out of the ordinary. One day, my mom was over at my grandparents' place, and I was home alone. It was a sunny afternoon, the kind where the air is full of birds singing and everything feels peaceful. So, I decided to walk through the woods and join her. I stepped into the trees, surrounded by the warmth of sunlight filtering through the leaves and the sound of birds singing. Everything felt normal, until I heard a voice. I stopped. Did I hear someone? I said aloud, scanning the woods. Then I heard it again, my name. It was my mom's voice, clear as day, calling to me. At first, I didn't think much of it. She probably knew I was coming and had stepped outside to call for me. But then I realized something strange. The voice wasn't coming from the direction of my grandparents' house. It was coming from deeper in the woods. "Mom?" I called out, confused. "Why are you out here?" No answer, just my name again. Same tone, same pitch, no urgency, no variation, just the exact same voice, over and over. I started walking toward it, slowly at first. Maybe she needed help, maybe something had happened. I called out again, and again she responded, always with just my name. That's when it hit me. Something was wrong, very wrong. The woods had gone silent, completely. No birds, no wind, no bugs, not even the faint hum of cars from the busy road just behind me. It was like the world had just stopped. My heart began to race. I turned, and that's when I saw it. Up on a small hill, partially hidden in the trees, stood a tall, dark figure. No face, no movement, just standing there, watching. I ran, as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I was inside my house, the door locked behind me, every curtain drawn. I collapsed by the window, staring outside for what felt like hours. The days that followed were filled with unease. I felt watched every time I was alone, every time it got dark. I never told my parents. I couldn't. I was too scared they'd laugh it off, or worse, that saying it aloud would make it real again. A year passed. We moved to another town, and for a while, everything felt normal again, peaceful. Eventually, I forgot all about the woods. Then, one night, months after the move, my cousin came over to hang out. We laughed, watched movies, the usual. He left late, and I went to bed not long after. To describe my room, my bed was right under the window. I laid down and closed my eyes until I heard it, a voice, my name. It was the way my cousin says it, same pitch, same inflection, but it was wrong, distorted, and it was coming from right outside my window. I froze, eyes wide, breath caught in my throat. The voice repeated my name again and again. I didn't move. I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. It kept going for what felt like an hour. I didn't sleep that night or the next. Eventually, it stopped. And to this day, I've never had another incident, and I hope I never will. The house stood at the very end of Maplewood Lane, where the streetlights buzzed faintly and often flickered as if they were struggling to stay alive. It had been empty for years before Emily and her 8-year-old daughter Lily moved in. The neighbors rarely passed by, and the trees around the house grew thick and tall, blocking out most of the sky. The price had been unbelievably low, but Emily didn't question it. After everything she had gone through, she just needed a place where she and Lily could start over. The quiet felt comforting at first, like the world had finally stopped chasing them. That first evening felt almost normal. Lily ran through the house laughing, her small footsteps echoing across the wooden floors as she explored every room. Emily watched her with a tired smile, unpacking boxes slowly, letting herself believe that maybe things would finally get better. They ate a simple dinner on the floor of the living room, surrounded by half-open boxes, and for a moment, it felt like home. When Lily finally fell asleep, Emily tucked her in gently, brushing her hair away from her face before turning off the light and closing the door halfway. Sometime in the middle of the night, Emily woke up suddenly, her eyes snapping open as if something had pulled her out of sleep. The room was completely still, but there was a faint sound drifting through the silence. At first, she thought it was just the wind pressing against the old windows, but then she heard it again. It was soft, low, and almost too quiet to notice whispering. The kind of whisper that didn't belong to any normal sound in a house. Emily held her breath, listening carefully, her heartbeat growing louder in her ears with every second. "Mommy," the voice came again, clearer this time. Emily's body went cold. That was Lily's voice. She threw off the blanket and hurried to the door, opening it slowly. The hallway outside stretched long and dark, the faint glow of a distant streetlight barely reaching inside. "Lily?" she called out, her voice shaky. There was no answer. The house felt different now, heavier, as if the air itself had thickened. She stepped into the hallway, her bare feet silent against the wooden floor, her eyes scanning the darkness. Then she heard it again, right at the end of the hall. "Mommy, come here." Emily's stomach twisted. The voice sounded like Lily, but something about it was wrong. It was too slow, too careful, as if someone was trying to copy the way her daughter spoke. Fear crawled up her spine, but she forced herself to move forward. Step by step, she walked down the hallway, her breathing shallow, her hands trembling. Just as she reached the middle of the hall, she felt a sudden tug on her sleeve. Emily gasped and spun around. Lily stood behind her, clutching her arm tightly, her small face pale and terrified. Her eyes were wide, filled with tears as she whispered, "Mom, someone was calling you from my room." Emily's blood ran cold. Slowly, both of them turned their heads toward the end of the hallway. The darkness there seemed deeper than before, almost swallowing the light completely. And then, from that darkness, came the sound again. "Mommy." This time, it wasn't coming from Lily. It was coming from something else. This happened during a storm last fall, and even now, I still don't know how something got inside my house without ever opening the door. Emma lived alone in a small rental house just outside a suburban town in Oregon. It wasn't completely isolated, but it was quiet enough that nights felt heavier than usual. Her nearest neighbor was a short walk away, separated by trees and a narrow gravel road. It was the kind of place where you could hear the wind moving through the branches and nothing else for hours. That Sunday evening in October, the rain started early and didn't stop. It wasn't a storm with thunder or lightning, just steady, cold rain that soaked everything and filled the silence with a constant dull noise. Emma had made tea, lit the candle, and curled up on the couch with her gray cat, Milo. The TV was on low, more for comfort than attention. Everything felt normal, calm, almost peaceful. Then Milo suddenly sat up. His body went stiff, ears flattening slightly, eyes fixed toward the back of the house. Emma noticed right away. Milo wasn't easily scared, and he never reacted like that without a reason. She followed his gaze, but there was nothing there, just the dim outline of the kitchen and the faint reflection of the window. That's when she heard it, a soft, deliberate sound. Tap, tap, tap. It didn't match the rhythm of the rain. It was too slow, too controlled, like something choosing when to make noise. Emma muted the TV and listened carefully. The house felt different now, quieter on the inside, but somehow heavier, like the air had thickened. She stood up and walked slowly toward the kitchen. The back door had a small glass panel near the top, fogged slightly from the cold outside. "Hello," she called, trying to sound calm. There was no answer, only the rain continuing its steady pattern. She stepped closer and wiped a small patch of the glass, peering out into the darkness. There was nothing there. No movement, no figure, just the faint outline of trees and water streaking down. Emma let out a breath and turned away, telling herself it was probably just a branch hitting the house. But just as she stepped away, she heard it again. Tap. This time it was closer, sharper. She froze. The sound didn't come from the door. It came from inside the kitchen. Slowly, she turned her head toward the sink. A drop of water fell from the faucet. Tap. Another drop followed. Tap. Just a leak. She exhaled, almost embarrassed at herself, and reached forward to tighten it until the dripping stopped. The silence returned, but it didn't feel comforting anymore. Without warning, Milo bolted. He sprinted down the hallway toward the bedrooms, claws scraping harshly against the wooden floor. "Milo," Emma called, her voice tighter now. There was no response. Instead, she heard something else. Soft footsteps, slow and uneven, coming from the hallway. Emma stood still, her mind refusing to accept what she was hearing. The doors were locked, the windows were shut. There was no way someone could be inside. "Milo?" She called again, quieter this time. The footsteps stopped instantly, as if whatever made them had heard her. She grabbed her phone from the counter and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, stretching down the hallway. It looked empty, but something felt wrong. The air felt heavier, like someone was standing just out of sight, watching her. Then she heard it again, tap, tap, tap. This time, it was right next to her ear. Emma screamed and dropped her phone. The light spun across the floor, throwing moving shadows onto the walls. Her heart pounded so hard it made her dizzy. She backed into the counter, trying to breathe, trying to think. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice shaking. No answer came, only the distant sound of rain. Forcing herself to move, she bent down and picked up her phone. As the light steadied in her hand, it pointed back toward the hallway. Something shifted. Not clearly, not fully visible, but enough to know it wasn't empty. It looked like a shape pulling itself slightly out of view. Emma didn't wait. She turned and ran straight for the front door. She unlocked it, threw it open, and ran out into the cold rain without shoes, without a jacket, barely aware of anything except the need to get away. She ran across the gravel and didn't stop until she reached her neighbor's house, pounding on the door and screaming until they let her in. The police arrived about 20 minutes later. They checked everything. Every door was locked from the inside. Every window was intact. There were no signs of forced entry, no footprints outside except Emma's, nothing that suggested anyone had been there. At first, Emma thought maybe she had imagined it, that the storm and the isolation had gotten to her. But then, one of the officers called her back inside. In the hallway, the wooden floor looked slightly wet, as if something had been dragged across it. The marks started near the back of the house and led all the way toward the kitchen. Emma quickly said she hadn't spilled anything, but the officer didn't respond. He just pointed closer to the floor. The marks weren't footprints. They looked more like handprints, but wrong. Too long, too narrow, and unevenly spaced, as if whatever made them didn't move like a normal person. Emma moved out 2 days later. She packed everything during daylight and never stayed alone after that night. She left the house behind and tried to forget it completely. In her new apartment, surrounded by people and constant noise, she finally felt safe again. For a while, nothing happened. She slept peacefully and convinced herself that whatever she experienced had an explanation she just didn't understand. Then one night, it started raining again. Not heavily, just a soft, steady drizzle tapping against the windows. Emma lay in bed, scrolling through her phone, trying to ignore the sound. Then she heard it. Tap. She froze, her eyes slowly shifting toward the window. Silence followed, and she whispered to herself that it was just the rain. Then it came again. Tap, tap. This time it wasn't on the window, it was closer. Her chest tightened as she sat up slowly. She turned on her phone's flashlight and scanned the room. Everything looked normal. Nothing was out of place. She let out a shaky breath, trying to calm herself. Then her phone buzzed. It was a notification from her home security app, the one still connected to her old house. Confused, she opened it. The camera feed loaded slowly, glitching slightly because of the weather. It showed the same hallway, dark, empty, still. Emma stared for a few seconds, then began to relax. But just as she was about to close the app, something shifted in the background. Deep in the hallway, a shadow seemed to pull itself backward, out of sight. Her breath caught as she stared at the screen. The camera flickered for a split second, and when the image returned, something was different. It was closer now, standing near the edge of the hallway. Tall, thin, completely still, facing the camera. Emma dropped the phone. It hit the floor, the screen still glowing faintly. She didn't pick it up. She didn't move. Because behind her, from somewhere inside her new apartment, she heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Which story did you like the most? Do let me know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe for more stories like these.